If your goal is to escape low elo as a mid laner as fast as possible, then you clicked on the right video. We'll be breaking down the top 10 best mid lane champions for climbing out of low elo. Now, the order does matter in this one, so the number one pick will be what we consider the strongest champion. Also, if you want to learn how to carry bad teammates and finally escape low elo as a mid laner, there's nothing better than our brand new mid lane essentials course at Skillcapped. This course will teach you everything you need to start carrying as a mid laner. Wave control, trading, roaming, macro, team fighting. We cover everything you need. Pair that with our new Season 14 course on countering overpowered mid laners, and then head on over to our Smurf commentaries. Select your champion to watch live commentaries from challenger players showing you how to carry out of the exact elo you're stuck in. And you can try all of this risk-free. If you don't rank up while actively using Skillcapped, you get your money back. No questions asked. You can unlock all of this through the exclusive discount you can only access through the link below. So, what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below to get the rank you've always wanted this season. Alright, starting us off at the number 10 spot on the list is Malzahar. Malzahar is a great choice for low elo because of how easy he is to play while also scaling great into the late game. That will be one of the common themes in this list, is late game strength really matters a lot in low elo as games typically last much longer. At the same time, there's way more kills being traded, meaning late game champions hit their key item spikes earlier than usual. The one thing you should be careful of with Malzahar though is his early levels. A common low elo mistake players make is trying to focus on pushing in opponents too early. Trying to use your E on the wave in the first 4 levels usually won't have enough damage to outpush the enemy, while letting the enemy zone you since it has a really long cooldown until you put a few points in it. For that reason, it's best to take teleport. That way if things go wrong in those early levels, you recall and teleport back to prevent you from falling behind. Your early laning is going to be weak until around level 5 when you have 3 points in your E, and then you can start perma-shoving with your E and W for the rest of the lane. From there, it's smooth sailing as you perma-shove the enemy mid and start to scale. The only reason Malzahar isn't higher on the list is his lack of mobility. Typically, low elo players struggle with understanding the range of gap closing abilities, and so you can pick up a lot more free kills if you have some sort of mobility spell. And speaking of which, that's why we have Echo in our number 9 spot. Now, I know, although on the surface, Echo can seem like he'd be a bit too mechanically intense for a low elo player, this isn't the case. Echo's Engage, his E, is actually point and click, and will constantly catch low elo players off guard. Once you E on the opponent, cast Q point blank, which slows, then auto once more for your passive proc, and that's pretty much all you need to burst a target once you get an item or two. Assassins are considered to be amazing in low elo since enemies will really struggle with positioning safely. However, it's usually a double-edged sword, where low elo players also struggle to play assassins, as they find themselves jumping into fights only to die instantly. This is what's so great about Echo. He's a very forgiving assassin to play since his ultimate lets you heal and jump back out of danger. His laning is also a lot safer and easier than most assassins, since early on you can just use your Q to either farm from safety or just shove the opponent in, while later on you can cast W on the wave, then just walk in to cast Q and you basically clear the whole wave while having a massive shield the enemy can't trade into. The only reason Echo isn't higher on the list is because he does require more mechanical skill than other picks. Not enough to push him out of the top 10, but still enough to prevent him from going any higher. The nine-tailed fox finds herself number 8 on our list. It's none other than Ahri. Ahri on the surface has so much going for her in low elo. She's basically a ranged assassin control mage hybrid. She's the Swiss Army knife of mid lane that can nearly do everything. The fact that she's ranged with good poke and wave clear gives her a much stronger laning phase than most melee assassins. At the same time though, her ultimate lets her capitalize on poor positioning from low elo players, catching them off guard and assassinating them. A common low elo mistake players make on Ahri though is focusing a bit too much on trying to kill their lane opponent. It can actually be kind of difficult to set up kills in lane with Ahri since you have to land a lot of skill shots. However, Ahri gets amazing wave clear as early as level 3 if you skill 2 points in her Q. You'll be able to clear the caster minions in 2 casts of it. So she's great at just perma-shoving her lane opponent in and then focusing on roaming around the map where she can use her ult to engage and set up kills. The reason why Ahri isn't higher up on the list is that she simply requires more mechanical skill than others ranked higher. She doesn't have very much easy to land damage, and so if you ult in and miss your charm and Q, well, you won't be making much of an impact. However, if you can end up getting through that mechanical learning curve, you'll end up with an extremely versatile, powerful mid lane pick. Moving on to our number 7 slot, we have Diana. Diana is in many ways similar to Echo, Echo, while arguably being easier to pilot. Her laning phase is way stronger than typical melee assassins since she has an amazing ranged ability, her Q, that lets her both poke and push waves. At the same time, her W acts as both damage and a shield, which makes her incredibly hard to beat 1v1. What really sets her apart though is her E ability. It has an absurd range of 825. That is absolutely insane for a point and click dash. Although you have to land your Q to get the reset on her E, you can often ignore this, as once you have an item or two, if you see a squishy opponent, you can just press E into alt and burst them down with no counterplay. The crazy high range of your E will constantly catch low elo players off guard. Not to mention, in mid to late game fights, if 3 or more enemies are grouped up, well, you can just E into alt on them and it's often enough to single-handedly win the fight. The only thing keeping her from being ranked higher is her lack of escapability. Low elo players can struggle with map awareness, and with Diana not really having an easy escape spell, often low elo Diana players find themselves pushed up and ganked a lot. At the same time, you'll be punished a lot more if you're out of position in the mid to late game. That being said, if you're someone who feels their positioning and map awareness is one of their strengths, well, Diana would be a great pick. Moving on, in our number 6 spot, we have another melee assassin, Neferi. Neferi is in many ways a safer and arguably easier version of Diana. Just like Diana, she has a strong ranged poke and push ability in lane, her Q, with a key difference being that it can actually heal her when she lands it on a bleeding target. And similar to Diana, she has a point and click engage ability, her W, that has a deceptively high range. It actually scales to 940 once you have 3 points in your ult, which is one of the highest engaged spells in the entire game. The big difference though is she can be safer in lane due to her E being a dash to help her escape when caught out of position. Additionally, her pack mates give her a ton of guaranteed damage that doesn't require landing skill shots, while also helping block skill shots from the enemy to make engaging easier. One of Neferi's biggest strengths over other assassins though is she's a bit tankier. She gets a massive shield from her ult and a shield from Eclipse, a standard item in her build path. This can make her a bit more forgiving to play. The only reason she's not higher on the list is that she doesn't have that big ability to swing teamfights. She's more about outmaneuvering players on the map and getting picks rather than just straight up teamfighting, which can require a bit more macro skill than higher picks on this list. And by the way, if you feel lost on mid lane macro, we have 5 videos in our mid lane essentials course that will teach you everything you need to pilot a champion like Neferi out of low elo. You can check it out with the discount link below. Now, starting off the top 5, we have Annie. Some of you may be surprised that Annie beats out the likes of Neferi and Diana, but she is simply the easiest champion to pilot on this list. She has a very straightforward kit that makes her easy to learn, while at the same time still being incredibly powerful. If you're new to mid lane or league in general, she's the best champion to start with for these reasons. Her ultimate has a deceptively high impact range of 850. A nice trick is actually to sit at 3 stacks of your passive. This will lull your lane opponent into a false sense of safety. You then activate your E for the movement speed bonus, which also counts as that 4th stack, which empowers her next ability to stun. This then puts you in range to drop ult, stun the opponent, and 100 to 0 them. The thing about Annie is not just about how her ultimate can massively swing teamfights at any point in the game, but her ultimate can also provide a ton of damage without you having to actually land anything. Tibbers does a lot of damage both from magic damage around him as well as his auto attacks, and every time you E, it will also apply that to Tibbers, so you get a ton of free damage even if your initial ult wasn't super impactful. One thing a lot of low elo players don't know is that you can actually control Tibbers by holding alt while right clicking. So after you drop down Tibbers, it's often best to hold alt and right click on a squishy carry. Tibbers will either run them down and kill them by himself or simply zone them from the fight the entire time. Moving on, we have our number 4 pick, Talon. Talon is the one champion on this list that would be considered a dedicated roamer. A roaming playstyle is one of the most effective in low elo, as players often lack in map awareness. For those who are unfamiliar with this kind of playstyle, you essentially just constantly shove in waves, pinning the enemy mid to their tower, not looking to interact with them, and then timing your roams off that push. There are other mid lane champions who excel at this, such as Talia and Katarina, but Talon is much easier to play while being just as powerful. A common mistake to avoid that low elo players make when picking up Talon is they'll often get fed in the laning phase from their roaming, but then they end up feeling too weak in the mid to late game once grouping and teamfighting occurs. This is due to Talon not having the most amazing teamfighting. It's not bad, but you often need to jump over walls and find good angles to set up your engage. The trick to avoiding all this is that once the mid game hits, you still want to push and roam, but in a side lane instead. So you would shove out a side lane, lure someone to pick up the wave, and then use your great mobility to roam and get a pick on the enemy. So if you're someone that finds that roaming playstyle appealing in mid lane, there's no better pick in low elo than Talon. Alright, now we're entering entering the top 3, and that third slot is being taken by none other than Kassadin. For those who have been playing League for a while, this probably came as no surprise. If anything, you may have thought he'd be number 2 or even number 1. The thing that makes Kassadin so good in low elo is that he has some of the best scaling of any champion in the game, and with how low elo games go longer more often than not, you'll get to become that big late game carry. Kassadin is also a great hard counter to most mages in mid lane since his point and click Q gives him a magic shield, while his ult can let him dodge their skill shots and engage on immobile mages. This of course can make it seem like he'd be weak against attack damage mid laners. However, his build can be very versatile and allow him to get tanky enough to counter them too. You can opt into Rod of Ages first for more health, Archangel second, which turns into Seraph's Embrace for the shield active, and then you get the armor and stasis active from Zhonya's. You can even build a Frozen Heart if you need, as it not only provides a ton of armor, but the mana it provides actually gives you damage on your ultimate since your ult scales off your max mana. Kassadin's biggest weakness is his early game, but given that low elo players struggle to play aggressive enough early on to punish him, while low elo games also go longer on average, it makes him a fantastic pick to dominate the lower elo brackets. Alright, now we have our second strongest mid champion for low elo, and it's none other than the title trickster, Fizz. If Talon wins by roaming and Kassadin wins by scaling, Fizz wins by just straight up killing opponents over and over again. Fizz is amazing in low elo for several reasons. His mobility is very deceiving since his E ability has 700 range while his Q has 550. That means if an opponent is within 1250 range, you can actually engage on them. And although you may be thinking, yeah, but doesn't Fizz max his E, so if you use E to engage, won't you have like no damage? Well, that's simply not the case in Season 14. Lichbane is a big enough power spike off one item that his Q and W, along with his ult, can 100 to 0 pretty much any champion without even landing the initial E. Then, once you really get snowballing, nothing but Q, W, and a Lichbane proc will be enough to one-shot targets, no ult required. One mistake most low elo players make that you must avoid when playing Fizz is trying to fight at level 1. You just have to give up CS and let the wave push to you levels 1 to 3. Then, once the wave crashes into your tower, you equalize in levels and can go aggressive while the enemy is overextended. This will then set you up to kill them once your cooldowns are back up. Another trick to be aware of is using your Q through minions and then combining it with your ult, as once your ult lands, it makes it very easy to then land your E. Basically, as long as you don't throw your lane trying to fight in those first 2 levels, Fizz will be a great choice if you want to climb through low elo fast. Alright, and finally we have the number 1 pick, the Star Forger himself, Aurelion Sol. Here's the thing, ever since Aurelion Sol got some big buffs at the start of Season 14, he's been demolishing solo queue at every rank. The reason why he's the number 1 pick for low elo though is because he has insane scaling. And unlike Kassadin, who also scales, Aurelion Sol doesn't have nearly as weak of an early game. In fact, he has a very safe laning phase. He has deceptively high range with amazing wave clear, which makes him nearly impossible to shut down in lane. What this means is you'll consistently be able to scale into that 1v9 hyper carry. And Aurelion Sol kit really has it all. He not only has amazing DPS with his Q, but his ult can also massively swing fights. His W is also great at both chasing and kiting enemies, and so if you're looking for a champion that can truly 1v9 carry bad teammates consistently, well then look no further than Aurelion Sol. Now, if you want to learn how to climb ranks fast as mid lane, then there's nothing better than our brand new mid lane course at Skillcapped. It covers the A through Z of everything you need to know to climb as a mid laner. This covers everything from trading to macro to team fighting and anything else you can possibly need from a mid laner's perspective. It's nearly an hour's worth of content we spent a very long time on, and you can check it out right now, risk-free, with our discount link below. Alright, and that will do it for this one. We here at Skillcapped want to thank you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.